Good afternoon, everybody. Let's start to get those cameras on for those that are camera ready. All right, let me stop share. We'll basically just do a little chit chat, everybody, for about 3 to 4 minutes or so. Give everybody a chance. Some people are coming in after work. So let's get a little pulse for how we're feeling before we jump into this session. So I'm going to go to the cameras on that we have so far. So Andrew, talk to me. Where are you at in your bar prep journey, if you don't mind sharing? And then, yeah, how are we feeling right now as we get ready for this FEB exam?
Hi everyone, nice to meet you guys. I'm good. I'm just ready to go. It was a rough result, but it happens, and I'm just ready to buckle up and move on to the next.
There we go. Okay. All right. Was this your second time, or is this going to be your second time taking it?
No, it would be my third time.
Okay, got it. All right. So ready to jump in the saddle and get back to it. So yeah, well, out of curiosity, what are you looking forward to getting out of this session?
Just to learn what the course is about, what it would help me with, uh, what would be the best way to go about the bar prep to see what I'm missing, what I'm not missing, and all that stuff.
Perfect. Yeah. So I'll get a little bit more into the itinerary, but just to address that, yeah, today's session, everybody, is number one for every student, no matter which program they're going to be taking, really to give you all some free, invaluable insight on what I think the next steps should be and how you can get back on track for success. But of course, with that as well, Andrew, I would definitely give the shameless Legally Fit plug at some point of letting you know what our program is, how it works for all those that are interested. So yes, we'll be tackling both of those. So let's go to another. Brenda, how about yourself? How are you? How are we feeling? No pressure to feel the same way. Again, I don't always expect Andrew's mentality, but I love it. Of like, okay, I'm ready to go. Are you in that same boat or a different boat?
Hi.
Say, oh, which Brenda? I
Yes,
realize.
yes, Brenda Rosas. Yes.
Okay, cool. I realize there's two. Same mentality, definitely. I think this weekend I allowed myself to feel what I had to feel. It's gonna be my second time taking it. But I feel like I'm in a different state mentally than I was when I fresh got out of law school. So I'm ready to learn like new habits and like definitely prioritize well-being this time around in bar prep.
Good. Okay, so just to kind of like build on that a little bit, and you might have said it already, but we can just do it as a single takeaway. What is something that, is a positive of going into this, for a second time that you are focused on that's a benefit?
That I know what to expect and I know
Yeah.
when to take breaks and listen to my body and my mind and when I'm like reaching that burnout.
Yes. I think that's a huge thing, especially for the second time takers, right? Of just all of that anxiety and mystery as to what the exam is going to be like and all of those components, you can kind of rest easy like, all right, that scary part of what if I fail, right? All those things are out the door. Maybe now we can put that to the side and have a clear understanding of what it takes. So, okay. Awesome. Let's do one more before we get started and then Lauren, yeah. How about you? How are you feeling since the results on Friday?
I think I mimic what Andrew and Brenda said. I feel like ready to just get back to it. I think everyone can relate with the sentiment of just feeling exhausted and burnt out at the end of
Yes.
law school. I also have always had bad test anxiety. So I almost feel like I know what it feels like. I know what to expect. And then a gift from failing once is you get feedback. So I feel more
Hmm.
confident going into it, knowing what I did well and where I could work on. So a little bit of
Perfect.
sense of relief, but ready just to get to work.
Okay. Yes. I mean, well, this is a great start to, I think, a great session in that we're already leading with a little bit of positivity. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get jumped into the presentation. The way this is going to work, just so I can respect everybody's time, I'm going to try to run through everything in about 20 minutes to 30 minutes. And as I go through it, please feel free to write down questions that I can then answer at the end or put them in the chat. And then again, I can circle back to them towards the end. But I want to run through everything so we can touch on everybody's different interest point. What if I'm working? What if I'm a parent? Should I start early? A lot of these popular questions I'm going to answer. Also, too, just to give the heads up that this is one of many free events that we'll be hosting this week and next. We'll talk more about that. But yes, this is the Didn't Pass Now What, with the big focus on what are the next steps you should take, and also a little bit about the Legally Fit program to see if it's a good fit for you all here. So I will go ahead now and share screen. Get rid of some of these notifications. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is address the elephant in the room. Okay. And these are for those that maybe have not processed it as well as our speakers did already. But we want to go ahead and just take a moment to say this sucks, right? Like, it's okay to feel a little crappy about this, because yes, right, this is something that you, in theory, put a lot of work into and really wanted and desired. So not that I want to stay in this emotion, but for those that haven't allowed themselves to feel that, it's okay to, again, address that and be okay with it. So in the beginning of the session for this, what I like to do is let's have just a little mini vent session, right? Just a moment to just get it all out of why this exam is annoying, why it's silly, stupid, etc. So what I want you all to do is feel free to put anything in the chat as to the particular reasons why you think this exam is so ridiculous. And then I'm going to go ahead and run through the list that I've created. The idea of memorizing 13 subjects, when in reality, we're going to end up going into practicing just one. The randomization of which subjects are essay tested, right? So we have no idea what's going to pop up on those 5 essays. The randomization of which topics are essay tested. So even if we say it's contracts, well, how many topics are we responsible for that could come up on that essay for contracts? The randomization of the PT, which I know a lot of the takers in July, right, are very familiar with, that they can throw curveballs. The infinite universe of nuance that can be MBE tested. The subjectiveness in grading the written portion, the essay and the PT, right? Some of us were in regrade territory, right? And we saw where one grader could have given us, let's say, a 65, and then the second grader graded that same essay and dropped us down to a 50. How's there a 15-point difference in the same essay graded by 2 different people, right? There's a big subjectiveness in how that written portion is graded. So that for this reason and many others, let's see if there's any good ones in the chat. Them putting questions on the test that you've never seen. Exactly. Even though you did so many practice questions, that's to that infinite universe. All right. Yes. The ridiculous amount of memorization. So as much as I like those moments of venting, the reality is that this is the exam that we have to take and that we have to pass. Ooh. So what we want to do is now figure out, okay, how can we get back on track? Okay, have that moment of getting it all out. And then now the next step is to make sure you process your emotions. So we heard that some of the students already over the weekend have taken that step. And some of us have maybe successfully completed that process. And others we may think we have, but we haven't yet. So I think this is a very important message to everybody, because if you don't process your emotions now, what we have seen year after year is a student who is a repeat taker, they'll go into bar prep and still be angry, sad, upset. And then those emotions start to become a distraction, right? It makes it harder to push through on those long study days when you have those emotions still eating at you. So this is a nice little lesson here and some advice that make sure you really go through it, you know? And again, I put here, everybody has their different ways of processing, right? Maybe you party and get it out. Maybe you cry, laugh, destroy. Some people go to one of those, you know, destroy rooms and just take a bat to things, get all that frustration out. So yes, if you don't process them, they can come up in bar prep. And then own your story. And then so what you see below here is a list of very notable, accomplished, recognized people who have passed the bar after multiple attempts, right? Did not pass the bar on their first attempt. So it's to remember that you are not alone in this process, right? If you didn't already know, right, 53.8% passed the July bar exam. So close to 50-50, close to half are retaking this exam. And even if not just amongst your peers, again, you could see some very accomplished people who took this exam more than once. All right, so what is our goal? Okay. Our goal is that we must be so good that the variables of the bar exam don't impact our chances of passing. We must propel ourselves outside of the risk zone. This is how I approached bar prep when I was in your shoes studying, right? There's so many variables, there's so many, right, mysteries and what's going to be tested and all of these things that create these chances of not passing. Well, how do I decrease that, right? And get to this outside the risk zone? Here's what it looks like. 3 qualities of a student outside the risk zone. 1, you have no gaps in your understanding of the heavily tested topics, right? So big emphasis there on the heavily tested topics. If we're talking contracts, right, I need you to understand, right, with a very solid foundation, offer, breach, termination, firm offer, right? There's certain rules that we just have to know. Now, again, with 13 subjects, does it have to be every single heavily tested topic that you have, right, 100% mastery with? No, but definitely a majority. Next, you have no glaring weaknesses with any skill portion of the exam, right? So the first prong talked about your understanding of the law, right? But after you move past that, you have to have the skill and strategy for the different portions. There's skill and strategy for the PT, for the essay, and for the MBE, and they're all different. Next, you identify your strengths and leverage them to give yourself some cushion. So I'm not sure how many of us really utilize this approach in our first or second attempt, but this is something that I'm a big proponent of, which is when you know you have a certain strength, let's say it's essay writing, right? Really strive to make that essay writing as good as possible to give yourself more leverage for the other portions of the exam that you might not be good in. But a lot of times there is an over focus on our weaknesses, and not to say that we don't need to focus on those and get those to a sufficient level, but let's not forget that the way that this exam is scored, it's weighted with all the sections. So a really, really high essay can make up for a slightly deficient MBE. So that's part of your strategy when you come up with your game plan, is to focus on your weaknesses, but also focus on your strengths. So here's how you get out of the risk zone. So those are the 3 qualities of a student. Here's what it comes down to. These are the 3 pillars of success that we use behind Legally Fit. So this is what I tell my students all the time. You have to do the work, you have to do it right, and you have to trust the process, right? Do the work. To be in the safe zone, you have to invest the requisite amount of time. Right. This is almost similar to, if you want to get the muscles, you want to get the abs, you want to get the flat stomach, you got to go to the gym. You got to eat the right foods. You just no way around it. And it's the same thing with bar success. You have to do the 2,200 MBEs, the 100 essays, and the 4 PTs, right? At least. Then there's do it right, right? And we're going to stick with this gym analogy. Just because you went to the gym, you can't go there and just lollygag at the gym and stand by the machines and look pretty. You have to actually be doing the right exercises. You have to be doing the right form, right? Getting the quality out of your time spent. And that's what do it right is about, is that you're studying in a way where you're actually improving day to day. But if you're just kind of going through the motions, then it's as if you didn't show up that day. So we got to make sure we're studying in the right way. And then lastly is trust the process, right? Some of us may have struggled with this in our previous bar prep studying. Maybe some of us did not, but this is something common where a lot of students won't trust the process and they won't focus on the right things at the right times. And bar prep is truly a culmination process, right? Where you have to stay locked in on what your strategy is, kind of ignore, as you see here, the Reddit, the outside counsel, the family member that passed the bar 50 years ago and used this resource. You have to lock in on what you're using, what it's telling you to do, and make sure you're staying according to that schedule, okay? Don't overreact to mistakes or struggle. Neutralize negative thoughts. Stay focused on daily goals and stick to the schedule. So we can talk more about this, write down any questions you may have. But yes, this is what I think it ultimately comes down to. This is what we call the recipe for success. Individually, I want you all to reflect on your areas of improvement. You have to look in the mirror and be honest. Here are some of the questions to ask yourself. Did I have too many distractions during bar prep? And let me tell you, after 10 years of doing this, I've heard it all. I was on vacation for 2 weeks during bar prep. I went through a breakup during bar prep. I found a new partner during during bar prep. Did I have the proper study environment? Did I actually have a space that was conducive to learning? Did I study inside of a crowded home when maybe I had other options? Did I spend too much time commuting when that took away from the amount of study time that I had? And then I think even more importantly, getting down to, did I do enough practice? Did I hit those 2,200 questions, 100 essays, and 4 to 10 PTs? Okay, so again, I want you guys to be honest with yourselves, because that will be the beginning steps of what you need to do as far as your personalized attack plan moving forward. And then lastly, right there in the middle, the one I skipped over, no pun intended, it says, did I skip certain subjects or topics hoping they wouldn't be tested? Right? That's one of my favorite lines of, don't get cheeky, right? Don't try to predict what's going to be on the bar exam and emphasize certain subjects versus not. You're placing yourself in the risk zone when you take action like that. You need to be prepared for anything and everything they can throw at you. All right, so let's begin your journey to passing the February 25 exam. I want you all to really channel entering this next round with confidence. You are entering this journey with more knowledge, insight, and skills than you did last time. And it all starts with a solid attack plan. In creating your attack plan, I first need you all to assess your time commitment for bar prep. Next, consider whether you want to start early, and that's between today, well, today's almost over, but let's just say today and December 16th, which is when most 10-week programs are going to begin. You also need to select your bar prep provider. You have between now and December to do so. And then how can you customize your attack plan, right? I think that's always important, even for first-time takers, but even more so for a repeat taker. All right, so let's talk about the time commitment. Here's the goal. The goal is always full-time study. Anytime you study for the bar exam, this is your goal. When life circumstances prevent you from studying full-time, you do what you've got to do. But studying full-time is the starting point. The reasoning here is that you want to give yourself the best shot at being done with this. All right, we don't want to stay in this bar prep test taking cycle. We know how long you have to wait for the results, how long you have to study. It can be a very, very long process. So we want to give it everything we have every time to get done with it as quickly as possible. Now, again, for some of us, though, that's just not a reality that I could full-time study. So let's take a look at this. On the left-hand side, we have, what about those that have a job, right? So here are your three options if you have a job. Number one, clear your schedule. Go into the office tomorrow and say, I quit, okay? I'm not doing this anymore, okay? Or, hey, can I take off 3 months? Can I have some time off? But let's say you really want to keep this job, right? What some of us want to do, need to do. Then the next step is create more time, right? You can't create full-time studying, but maybe you can create more time. Can I get a month off of my job? Can I switch to a part-time role? Can I do a hybrid of both of those options, right? That's what we've seen a lot of students either taking maybe that last month off. Sometimes those, again, switch to a part-time role and things like that. And then the last option is if you can't clear your schedule, nor can you create more time, then you just have to simply study with whatever time is left over. You continue to work full time and you study after work and weekends. And that is a challenge, but it is a challenge that others have accomplished. So if that's your circumstances, accept it and take it head on. And it's just going to be that, right? Just a challenge. Now let's go to the right-hand side, because this is also the case for some of us. For those that have personal commitments, clear your schedule, right? Just a joke here, but I put break up, right? I'm not suggesting or recommending that you have to break up, but the idea is clear your personal commitments if you can, whether that's friendships, relationships, create the space for you to be able to study. Next is create more time, right? Which is more likely what we have to do as opposed to just getting rid of people in our lives. We have to figure out how can we set up systems to give ourselves more time to study. So maybe that's babysitting. Maybe that's adjusting relationship schedule, right? Maybe it's 1 date night a week as opposed to 3 or 4. Sacrificing the social schedule, right? So these are all things that should be considered as we, again, try to find as much time as we can to study. And then lastly is study with leftover time. Continue with personal commitments and study with whatever is left over. And again, like personal commitments, we see so much variance. And there's some that people have control over, where let's say majority of your personal commitments are chosen and they're social. But then there's other ones where, again, it might be familial, right? You might be a parent of 2 newborns. And so that's not optional. Right? Or you might be a health or care provider for a family member. That's not optional. So figure out where you're at, and again, where you fall on your ability to free up that time. Now, whether it's a job or other personal commitments, the idea is that either tonight, tomorrow, soon, what you need to do is finish this assessment with a clear and practical approach for how many hours you will be able to dedicate per day and per week. I want Lauren to be able to say, okay, come December, I'm going to be able to study 6 days a week, and I'm going to be able to study 10 hours a day. Or I want Andrew to say, okay, I'm only going to be able to study 5 days a week, and I can only study 5 hours a day. No matter what it is, again, when you have a realistic time frame, now you, and if you work with me, I can work with that to help you come up with a practical approach. But it's so important for you to come up with a number that you can stick to, so we can come up with a plan that can also then stick. All right, so that's time commitments. Again, writing any questions that you may have, we'll answer those at the end. Let's now transition to talking about early start. All right. So the first question is reasons to start early. Number one is as a remedy for low time commitment. So let's say you have other things you're committed to, you have things that'll get in the way of a full-time study. Well, you can start now to get ahead of that, okay? Number two reason to start early is if you need extra attention or practice needed based on your scores. Right. So we'll talk about this a little bit later in the slide, but as a quick, barometer here, if you were over 100 points, strong recommendation that you start early. If you were only off by 10, 15, 20 points, is it imperative you start early? No. Is it like if you have the readiness for it, why not? Yes. So again, it depends on where you're at there. All right, so who is an early start for? For those that are ready to rock and roll. At the end of the day, even if you're only 10, 15 points off, but you are just ready to go and you're feeling that energy, by all means, let's jump into it, right? I feel like I got some of that energy as we started the session. It's also for those who do, again, have work and personal commitments, highly recommended that you start early. And then for those that just want a warm up, right? This is like a good old stretch before you know you're going to get into the intensity of it. So you can use this next month or so to just kind of slowly start getting back acclimated into it instead of having to jump into the deep end once the program officially starts. Now, do I have to start early? The answer is no. You have to do what's best for you. You should consider when you took the last bar exam, what was your last score, your time availability, and your mental readiness. But again, don't want to put any pressure on anybody. If you feel like you still need a moment to mentally prepare, get your life ready, all those different things, by all means, do what's going to be best for you. Now, this is one of the important questions here. How do I start early? All right, so this is even giving a little bit of what a personal conversation would look like. Most students fit into one of these 3 categories as to what approach they should take. So the first one is the remedy approach. If you are starting early because you know you don't have full-time study come December, then you're going to take this approach where you basically want to start bar prep early, right? Because you're in theory not doing extra work, you're starting early to accomplish all the work that's assigned within the 10-week program. All right, so that's the remedy approach. Simply get into the program early and begin it so that way you can actually complete the things that you otherwise wouldn't be able to. Now, what about the extra attention practice approach? This is for the person who is going to spend the full-time study period in December. So that's not an issue, but I want to address some of my glaring weaknesses. Well, then now you have a little bit more customization with how you spend that time, either with your specific weaknesses with the law or certain portions of the exam. All right. And so with that, again, that might be worth a little bit of a conversation if you're struggling with figuring out what specifically your weaknesses are. But that is the idea here, is that you're trying to lean into that as opposed to just simply starting early. And then lastly, one may decide, I don't even want to start early by necessarily focusing on the law. I want to start early by preparing my life for bar prep, right? This is kind of the preparation phase, the cutting the vegetables before you start cooking, right? That's preparing your life, working on setting up a distraction-free bar prep period, working on preparing your relationships, your family, your kids, your significant others, your responsibilities, right? Getting rid of tasks and things that you might have to do. Hospital visits, DMV visits, right? Getting all those things out the way so you can have a clean 10 weeks. Think about your study space, your routine. I always say one of the biggest hacks that I think of bar prep that I use to just like stay sane was meal prep. Like I literally had a meal prep friend. I wasn't even in the service back then. I had a friend who was in culinary school who made meals for me, and just not having to think about food every day was a secret weapon of just being able to stay locked in on studying. So yes, those are the things to think about there. All right, so that's early start. Okay, let's move on from there. Again, write down any questions you have. Now let's talk about you selecting your bar prep provider. Okay, so same company versus new company. Two things to say here. One, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So if you are and you did work with a company that you feel like gave you the support, the materials, all the things you needed to succeed, and it just, right, maybe you didn't put in the work, or maybe it just didn't work out on that particular go round, then by all means stick with it. But if you're not getting all those tools you need, all the support you need, et cetera, then there are other options out there that may be a better fit and better assist you on getting over this hurdle. So then now let's go ahead and talk about the Legally Fit experience, just to kind of show you what it looks like and how you go through, our program. So it starts off right now, you all would essentially be in the phase of exploring bar prep. If you haven't already made your decision on what you're going to choose for this next go round. So in that, you can book a consultation call with us where for 15 minutes, you can have some one-on-one time answering or asking, and we'll answer any questions that you may have about the bar, about our program, about how it may fit for you. You can also request Legally Fit sample materials and lectures if you're not used to them. And we also allow students to speak with former students of ours, so you can get it straight from people who have experienced this program as opposed to just us. So that's something that's also available by request as well. Then we have our early start options. We'll talk about this a little bit later on as well, but we have our repeater assessment and strategy session, a really awesome offering that we started doing 2 years ago, and it's been really helpful for people getting off to a strong start, where I sit down with you personally for an hour, and we go through your scorecard, we go through some of your written product from the bar exam, and I assess what your weaknesses are, and we come up with a personalized attack plan for bar prep. So we'll talk more about that. And then you can also have a self-guided early start. And that's the idea that if you sign up for Legally Fit, as soon as you sign up, we can get you into the platform and you can start studying early as opposed to waiting till December. We have orientation. You'll see the dates for it. Orientation is December 9th. This is our week before bar prep starts, where we give you the schedule and study expectations. We give you the Legally Fit bar strategy, and we gear you up for bar prep. And now, again, by all means, if you started even earlier and you wanted to do orientation early, that's also an option. Then you have at the bottom part of this, the official 10-week program, okay? So the first part is the learn phase, where we go through all of the law and the introduction to all of the skills to make sure we learn the law and the skills. Then we assess and strategize. We have a mock exam. We go through some feedback on that and seeing where we're at and what we need to work on, as far as then our last 2 weeks, where we have a personalized attack plan that we go through to then gear up for the actual exam. All right. And then hopefully that's how we're feeling as we see that young lady in the superwoman pose, feeling confident. That's my goal for every student, is that you are so prepared in a way that you're walking into the exam feeling ready and confident. All right. So why choose Legally Fit? These are the 3 things that I think are most important when you choose a bar prep company. You have to choose one that has materials that work for you, the right strategy and approach, and then support. So materials that work for you. 1, engaging lectures that are worth your time. Now, I know one of the biggest issues for a repeat taker is like, do I have to watch more videos? Do I have to learn the law? And the answer is, right, it depends. If you're coming over to Legally Fit for the first time, we highly recommend that you either watch all or a majority of the videos, because that is what I believe is the foundation of passing. You have to have that strong understanding of the law. And that is what we rest our hats on, is our ability to translate the law, where you can really issue spot it, really analyze it deeply because you understand it. So with that said, our lectures are not the ones you're used to of just somebody simply standing at a podium reading off rules. So you'll find them to be much more engaging and easier to follow. Now, beyond that, there's consistency amongst our study materials. For all those that took a Barbary or a Themis, you may have recognized that the rules and the materials aren't always consistent. One independent contractor could have made the outline, whereas another independent contractor made the video, and they use different rules for offer. And now I have to choose which one to use, right? You won't have that problem here, saving you countless time, frustration, and hours of figuring out which materials to follow. And then also you ought to be able to easily read and navigate the materials. As you all know, you're going to spend countless hours with this. It needs to be something that's presentable, readable, and easy for you to get to where you want. And we have a big focus on that as well. Next is strategy and approach. Okay, let me move this Zoom over here. Perfect. Strategy and approach. So first off, our approach to reteaching new law and just going through bar prep is that we try to simplify the study experience. So I'm not sure if some of you have felt this if you took another course before, where you might feel like you're constantly juggling multiple courses at once. You might be doing torts and property and contracts kind of in a 3-day time frame. Kind of jumping around from different subjects and tasks, where I like to simplify it, where we do one subject at a time. We learn it, we do essays on it. If it's multiple choice tested, we do multiple choice on it. Then we move on to the next subject. We do it right consecutively, and then you have days for review. So that's our approach there. Open book versus closed book practice. I'm a big proponent of a lot of open book practice. I consider it just like riding a bike. You have to start with the training wheels, and once you're ready, you take the training wheels off. You do not start by going with no training wheels. You're just going to keep falling, and be discouraged from riding that bike. So you want to start with the training wheels and use that to develop your skill, your confidence, and then you're ready to move on. And speaking of improving that confidence, we assist with that with our formulas and templates. So we try to make the process, we don't try to do all the work for you, because that's going to take away your opportunity to do the work, learn, and grow, but we try to assist. And so in doing that, we give you formulas and templates for the heavily tested areas of law. Right? So negligence, there's going to be a formula and template. Personal jurisdiction, a formula and a template, etc. Also, not just for the law, but for the different portions of the exam as well. Essay, multiple choice, and MBE, we have very specific strategy that we use. So if you're looking to improve in all those areas, strategy can sometimes be what unlocks a whole new approach that gives you your success you're looking for. All right. And then lastly, right, I think the repeat takers can always relate to this better than a first-time taker would, because you don't really know why one would need or want support throughout bar prep. But having gone through the process, I think we can relate, if you did not take Legally Fit or another supportive bar prep company, that it could be very isolating, right? It could be very isolating and you don't know if you're on the right track. It could be very isolating in that you have questions and nobody to answer them. So we put a lot of effort into supporting our students as much as we can to get them over this hurdle. So as you see here, it's highlighted by the ability to ask questions, the ability to connect with other students, and then also assistance with adjusting or adapting to bar prep, right? So for a lot of our students, things come up, life happens. And so you don't have to figure out how to readjust on your own when you're in that situation. We are here to help. I want to also mention, notably back up to the ask questions, that we also do have office hours. So that's something that's unique in that it gives students an ability to ask questions. All right. Here are our two options for Feb 25. This is our pretty standard options. On the left-hand side, you have what we call Legally Fit Bar Prep. elevated self-study. This is going to be resemblant of what taking a, let's say, Barbary or Themis looks like, where you're essentially given all the materials. And that's why we say it is elevated, because we think our materials would be considered better. But ultimately, you don't get, kind of moving over to the Bar Prep Plus side, you don't get all of the hybrid program that comes with this option. So this hybrid program comes with, it's a hybrid of self-study and also private coaching. So we do workshops anywhere from 2 to 4 times a week, where you meet with me and we have live workshops via Zoom, right? From typically they start at 9 and they'll go anywhere from about an hour and a half to 2 hours. During these workshops, we go through MBEs, we go through essays. It's an opportunity to ask questions. Every week on Fridays, we do accountability checks and also mental health check-ins on how's everybody doing. We have little sessions for those that want to kind of come together and talk about what they're struggling with, and we give solutions for that. And again, it's all just to that support when life happens, things come up, or you're just having a tough week. We're here to try to get you through that. So that's really what the Bar Prep Plus is about. That's how we started Legally Fit Bar Prep, was with our Bar Prep Plus program, again, where it's that hybrid between private tutoring and a regular bar prep course. Okay, so again, take any questions down that you may have on this. Let's go ahead. Oh, and there's a QR code if anybody wants to scan that to either sign up or see the digital version of all this information so they can compare the two programs on their own. Really quickly, the Legally Fit guarantees. Retake Legally Fit's Bar Prep program for free until you pass. There's a GPA guarantee of 3.5 or higher. Receive your money back if you have a 3.5 or higher and you do not pass with us. Honors programs guarantee, if same thing, if you are on an honors program and you don't pass with us, you can receive your money back. And then the other one is free access always to our materials until you do. So the reason why we do these guarantees is for 2 reasons. One, to remind you and really assure you that we're in this with you until you do pass, number 1. And number 2, it's that, right, we got to keep the lights on at Legally Fit. So we're only comfortable giving all this back to you is because we're confident we're not going to, right? So we're able to do this because we do believe that if you're in these situations, and just in reality, if you follow the program and you do the 3 pillars, you do the work, you do it right, and you trust the process, we're confident you are going to pass. All right, so we're nearing the end on what you need to do. All right, so this next step is talking about customizing your attack plan. So we're moving on from choosing your bar prep company. We talked about the things you need to consider: the materials, the support, and also, what was that third one? Materials, and the strategy and approach. Okay, so now once you've chosen it, whichever one it is, you need to customize that to your needs, right? To your weaknesses. So I want you to read and dissect your scores. Identify which portion of the exam needs the most improvement. Is it the essay, the MBE, or the PT? Is it equal amongst all 3? Number 2, assess whether your low performance is due to issues with understanding the law. Is it poor test-taking skills or insufficient practice? That is where it gets, again, very individual. I could take one student who got a, let's say, a 1370 on the written portion, and it was because, right, like their understanding of the law didn't allow them to score better. Where I could have another student who scored a 1370, and they got that score because they simply, their skills didn't allow them to get better. They didn't know how to squeeze out all the analysis points, right? And things like that. So again, you have to get into the why for you do you need to improve. Adjust your schedule, but do not overcorrect. Again, as I'm going to mention here in a second, I can assist with this, Legally Fit can assist with this, of coming up with a personalized attack plan. But if you choose to do it on your own, I highly recommend avoiding the over-aggressive, right, shifts on how you study. So for example, somebody will say, oh, I'm really good at MBEs and I'm really poor in essays. So then they'll go through bar prep where they'll do 500 practice multiple choice questions and 200 practice essays. Well, we can guess the obvious of what's going to happen there. Their multiple choice is going to drop, right? And their essay is going to improve, but it may not now end up in success because their MBE could have dropped too low. So you still have to stay sharp in those other areas you're good in. So that's why I say here, don't overcorrect. So it's a fine line between subtle and significant adjustments that you make. But again, you just don't want to overdo it and create new problems. So here's my attack plan recommendations. So I think everybody, feel free to take a screenshot of this and really sit with this so you can decide if you're doing this on your own, what you want to do. So I based it off of how many points away you were from passing. Again, remember the passing score is a 1390. If you were very close, right, 0 to 25 points away, I recommend that you take a bar prep program. I not recommend, but I say, why not do private coaching? Early start is optional and self-study is optional. And when I say self-study, that's for ones that truly want to not even use a bar prep program. Maybe they might still have the materials, but they're just like, hey, I'm just going to wing it and just come up with my own schedule, my own everything. Like, I'm just going to take matters into my own hands. I never recommend that, but if you were that close and that's what you're, just set on, by all means. Obviously, as you see here, I don't recommend it for anybody, but especially if you're outside of that 25-point range, highly recommend that you don't go with that option, just because, again, you don't want to run that risk of not passing again. 26 to 100, right? So we're in this now like middle range of how much of a jump that we need to make. Again, bar prep program is recommended. Private coaching, I think now once a week is a good idea. Now compare that to the 1 to 3 above. For the 1 to 3 for 0 to 25, you can do 1 in the beginning just to kind of get a sense of where your weaknesses are, 1 in the middle to see if you're on track and you've made some improvements, and 1 at the end to see, all right, what do I need to fine tune before I go into the exam? So just something to make sure you're working with somebody to get that expert guidance. Now on the 26 to 100 is where I recommend considering once a week. So every week you're getting some specific attention on whatever your weaknesses are. So maybe you're going through multiple choice, maybe you're going through essays, and lastly, maybe you're going through questions and issues that you're having with the law that you need to talk out with somebody. All right, and then on the early start side here, highly recommended, okay? And then if you're 101 points off or more, then first off, I want to say, do not be discouraged from thinking that you can't pass. We'll talk about what some of our records are on the jumps that students have made, but you have to understand the challenge that is ahead of you. And it will be a challenge to make an over 100-point jump. With that, take a bar prep program. Consider twice a week private tutoring if you have the time, budget, and availability for it. And absolutely, I would recommend that you start early because of the challenge that's in front of you. Okay, so those are all my recommendations if you wanted to start to create your attack plan on your own. All right, and as mentioned, if you want assistance with making your strategy and your attack plan, you can schedule a one-on-one assessment with me where we'll sit down via Zoom, the two of us, and we'll go through your scorecard provided by the bar exam so I can read and see what your weaknesses are and what you need to work on. You'll provide me with your written feedback for the essay that I tell you to give me, and I'll go through that and see, okay, how is your writing looking and where can you improve? And then from all of that, we'll talk through your personal time commitments, what time availability you do have, any other factors that are relevant, and we'll come up with that attack plan together. So if you're interested in doing that one-on-one assessment, there's another QR code there. You can scan that, and that'll allow you to book a session. Also, we'll be sending that link via email if you rather wait for that. All right, let's finish up with a couple of key stats and some timelines, and then we'll open it up to questions. So key stat number 1, our recent pass rate for the July 24 was 81%. California pass rate was 53.8. Key stat number 2, in our February 24 bar prep class, one student improved 188 points. Okay, so that's been our record so far for the most point jump that we've had in our program. And so I think this is really awesome, whether it was our program or not, just for anybody retaking the exam to see this as inspiration. So no matter if you're 5 points off or 200 points off, I always tell students, shoot for it and attack it as if you're going to pass. But let's also be realistic of what it means and what it takes to make this type of jump. It takes a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of dedication, and also being very coachable. right? You have to listen to whatever it is being, given to you on how to improve. Key stat number 3, our passers included parents, full-time workers, and students with learning disabilities. And I love this key stat just to remind everybody that, I hear through the rumor mill that, oh, Legally Fit is only for the really smart students, or Legally Fit is only for students who are really struggling. And something that we pride ourselves on is that we have students of such diverse backgrounds, needs, et cetera, that come through our doors and are successful. And so also a reminder to yourselves that no matter if you're a parent, full-time worker, if you have odds stacked against you or odds stacked in your favor, that you can get through this exam. Quick on the timeline. As mentioned, we have some other free events in our July 24 Breaking Down the Bar series. On Wednesday of this week, 11/13, we'll be going through multiple choice strategy. So not so much of a bar breakdown, but how you want to attack multiple choice moving forward. And then on 11/18, we'll be taking one of the bar essays from the July exam and walking through it together. And in that, I'll also be giving a little bit of Legally Fit strategy and how we approach essays. So you kind of get a 2-for-1 there to see a little bit of how our workshops work, but also we can scratch that itch of addressing one of those essays that we just took. If there's any suggestions or desires that you may have for which essay we cover in that workshop, feel free to put it in the chat and I'll tally it up and consider that when I figure out which essay, or I'm deciding which essay I'll choose. So yes, you can put in, let's talk about the remedies question, the contracts question, the evidence, PR, whatever it may be. All right, and for February bar prep orientation, again, as a reminder, write it down, is 12/9. And the actual bar prep begins 12/16. Okay. Remember, if you want to get started early, you can sign up today and get everything that you need, whether it's today, tomorrow, you can get started early. That pretty much concludes everything that we have as far as the presentation. So now I'll open it up to any questions and answers that we have on what we've discussed or other things as well. So let me go ahead and stop sharing. All right, Delilah, question.
Hi, I was just wondering, what does the average day for a Legally Fit like bar student look like compared to Barbary? Because I did Barbary the first time and the day just looked like watching long videos, it felt, and doing like 8 multiple choice in between. It felt like it was just like lots of video watching and getting assigned chunks of 3 and 4 hours to like independently study or just read over lectures. So what does like a Legally Fit day look like?
Absolutely, yeah. So I'll give you, let's take one class in a nutshell and kind of talk about that, how that looks. And I also type in the chat so I can kind of memorialize it for you all to see it that way as well. So for every class, right, let's say it's contracts, you for contracts will have a learn day, an essay day, and a multiple choice day. All right. On Learn Day, you have a day totally dedicated just to learning that subject, right? So this is a day for you to get back into what parole evidence is and understand it, get back into accord and satisfaction, et cetera. Now, Delilah, the way I recommend students as a starting point is to watch videos that we provide. Again, we put effort into making those videos a little bit more engaging and ability to stay engaged, and they're interactive to an extent. Now, that's the starting point. But what we have is within that options, especially for a repeat taker, that you have videos, you also have what we call the Legally Fit hypos and explanations, and you also have charts and diagrams, all of which serve the purpose of you getting comfortable with the material. So ultimately, what I do want students to do is to lean into the various learn materials that work the best for them. And then we also obviously have the outlines as well, forgot those. So the goal is that you are investing your time in whatever is the most effective way for you to digest it. Or if I call on you to go through an offer question, you can work through it because you've actually learned it on Learn Day. So that's number one. Number two is then you have essay day. So when in each given week, we'll have a workshop for either essay or multiple choice, or typically we have both, but not for every subject. So let's say it's an essay day that has a workshop on that day. We'll start off the day by going through an essay together to get the balls turning. We'll remind ourselves of the strategy that I've given you in orientation, and we'll go through that first essay. Then after that, you then on your own will go through essays for the remainder of the day, right? And practice what we've gone through. Multiple choice, we'll take a similar approach. There'll be a multiple choice workshop. Either it's a recording or we'll be doing one live on that particular day. We go through that. We remind ourselves of the strategy. We go through some practice. We take some questions, and then I send you off. And then now you do a set number of practice MBE questions. The reason why I like this approach is that when you pretty much batch the work in this way, when you sit and do nothing but contracts essays, nothing but contracts multiple choice, it allows you to see the patterns. And that's how I'll be teaching you, is to really have an eye for seeing patterns, to see how repetitive they test. But that's the way that we consolidate these subjects and approach it. So yeah, that it would be how on a micro and macro how it works, because then you'll just repeat this process for the next subject. Then you'll do torts, right? And then on Sunday, let's review some of the subjects that we've recovered in the past, and then move on to the next set. Awesome. Did that make sure, Delilah, that fully answer your question? Any follow-up on that regard?
Yeah. So if that's how it's structured, how many days a week or hours are required in order to be able to like accomplish the entire program? Or is it like flexible to where you can like decide, I want to do
Yes.
5 to 6 hours, I want to take weekends off? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, exactly. So my program is set up in a way where it's designed for you to do 10 hours a day, and typically 6 days out of the week. There are some Sundays that I do have you work, but most Sundays are either off or half days. But there are some Sundays where it's in the schedule to commit to something. Now, with that, though, Delilah, as we mentioned, especially for repeat takers, everybody doesn't have the same availability. So what I did was also create a program that's modular, right? So if you are working on essay day, and it's recommended that you have 10 hours to complete 6 essays, and you're saying, all I can do is study 5 hours. Well, it's simple for us now to subtract and say, all right, well, I'm only going to do now 3 essays in these 5 hours, or try to squeeze in 4 in that way. So I've created it where it's designed for 10-hour days, but for those that don't have the ability to commit to that, it is modular in a way where you can reduce it to whatever you do have as available time. Perfect. All right. Next question, Aaron. What's going on?
Hey D, how's it going?
Pretty good, man.
So yeah, I failed. But it wasn't bad actually. I'm not disappointed because, well, I got a 1378, so I know I'm right there.
Right there.
So I'd like to, yeah, I missed the QR link, but I want to go over my scores with you because, and I'll keep this brief, but like property law, I got a 70 on the essay, but on the MBE, I did the worst in the nation. I got a 12. So something went wrong, right? Like I got the essay, I think it's good, right? 70, and then
Yeah.
12 on the MBE, which threw me off. But yeah, I'd like to connect with you, later on and
Yeah.
go over it,
Absolutely.
strategize, because I have to kill February. I have to do it.
You're right there. Yeah.
And I'm going to
just
be working as well. So again, but I think this is the one. So
yeah, absolutely. And like, just to address that quickly for anybody else that's kind of in that boat, the quick kind of summary of that situation. And when you scored pretty high on one portion of the exam, but really low on the other, that typically goes to show that the understanding of the law is not the main issue, but there's something around the skill and strategy aspect of it, right? When it's like, how did I get a 70 on my property essay, but then maybe, I scored in the, 15th percentile on the property multiple choice, right? So yeah, we'll get into that and be able to get into some questions, talk about your process and things like that. So we'll put that in the follow-up email where you can book that one-on-one.
appreciate that, D. Thank you.
I also
Absolutely, man.
entered it into the chat.
Oh, perfect.
Nice. Okay. I'm good.
All right,
Thank
man.
you so much. Thank you.
I love the good spirits, though. Like you said, you're right there. And yeah, my heart always goes out to when we're on right on that cusp, because, had one essay been graded another way or whatnot, it could have been a different result, but
it's going to
all good.
happen no matter what. So it's just
There
fun.
we go. There we go. Awesome.
Thank you, D.
Of course. Any other questions?
Yes, hello.
Yes,
Can you hear me?
I can't. I just don't know who I'm addressing. I don't see a name or a picture or anything coming
Yeah,
up.
I'm trying to get a picture up, but it doesn't seem to want to come through.
Oh, it's Homeboy. Okay, we're
Yes.
going by the alias. Okay, what's up, Homeboy?
Okay, listen, I'm having a difficulty. I'm an older student,
Okay,
and it's been 10 years since I've taken the bar, and I wanted to get ready to take it again. I've gotten my life together, but there's been a
okay,
number of changes that have taken place. I'm doing the New York State bar exam. I did pretty good. I missed it by 3 points, believe it or not,
okay.
on the grading exam. But I'm wanting to know what are the changes that have been done, like with the essays, with the PTs, with multiple choices, and the new laws that have come in effect.
Yeah. So the you're in the UBE states, and so just for clarity for all those that are here who are not taking the California bar exam, our program is designed primarily for the California bar exam, but we have assisted and have been successful with helping students take and study for the UBE exam as well. With that said, Homeboy, the UBE exam is undergoing changes, and different students, different jurisdictions are adopting them at different speeds. So first off, I don't think New York, I'm pretty sure they're not one of the early adopters to be taking on the next gen exam. So you don't have to worry about that new format. And as far as there being new laws, it takes time for new laws to get factored into the actual bar exam testing. And also, I think with all the changes that they're doing already to the bar exam, I think if there's ever a time where they're unlikely to test, let's say, a new, budding area of law, it would be now, just because there's so many other changes they're focused on. So yeah, all that to say, like, yeah, being 2 points off, that's again kind of like Aaron's situation. Those are students that I feel like if you do exactly what you did last time and you take it again, you essentially have a fighting chance of passing. All you're looking to do in your next approach is getting back into it and trying to propel yourself outside of that risk zone as much as possible by trying to better understand that much more law, by trying to do that much more practice to be prepared for as many essay topics as possible to efficiently and thoroughly analyze and things like that. But yes, that would be my answer to your question.
Just to clarify, what is PT, just that I understand?
The PT is also the MPT for you. That's the performance test. So the write an objective memo or write a closing argument, et cetera, et cetera.
So it's basically like a mini brief or something to that effect?
Exactly. It could be it depends. It's always just essentially a legal task that's assigned to you. So it could be a brief. It could be a client letter, a letter to opposing counsel, right? There's a lot of different ones, but yes, it's something of a legal task that you might be assigned once in practice.
Okay, thank you very much, Sean.
Very, very welcome. All right, I saw two hands go up at the same time. I'm not sure what order, so I'll go with Miriam first.
Oh, thank you. I think the other person had their hand up first.
Okay, cool. Yes, and then is it Utian? Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, it's Utiang.
Utian, okay.
Yep. My question was actually similar in terms of changes. I understand February 2025 is supposed to be written by Kaplan now, or like there's some changes happening to the structure of the exam. There's some sites that I've seen that say, oh, use the same like materials to study. Other sites I feel like are saying that the content is changing and it's going to be more like practical based of what practicing law looks like. So just curious as to what you've heard, what you know,
Yeah.
and how does that affect our studying for this exam?
Absolutely. So yeah, as you mentioned, it really is everybody wild, wild west right now when it comes to, what are the changes going to be? What are they? Because the reality is that this February exam is going to be the first one. So first off, I like to not hypothesize too much. And I'm going, essentially, my opinion comes directly from the source of what the California Bar tells us. And so they've given a lot of press releases, a lot of articles, et cetera, that are consistently having the message that they are trying to keep the exam as consistent as possible. There's also another big emphasis that the really only big change here is that they are moving away from the UBE to create the multiple choice questions. So in theory, we have these new questions. I haven't studied them yet, but UTN, by chance, did you get a chance to look at those 20 released questions that the bar put out for the experiment exam this past weekend?
No, I had no idea they did that.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull that up really quickly for you all, and I'll
Okay.
put it in the chat right now as a resource for you guys all just to take a look at. But they have 20 questions that they put out. Yeah, found it. Give me 1 second. Drag this over, everyone in the meeting. So this is the most that we have so far. It's in the chat. And yes, this is 20 questions with answers. That is supposed to, be a resemblant of what the multiple choice questions will look like. I've done about 5 of them so far, and in large part, they look very similar, right? It's a fact pattern. It's testing an area of law. You work through it. So I then am along the line of thought of like, I don't think there's much that we change in our approach to multiple choice. It's just, let's just understand the law. Let's do practice. And a big thing that we already have to do, everybody, and we know this because we've taken the exam, right? One of the complaints that we saw, valid complaints, was even though I did a million bajillion questions, there were still areas of the law on there that I had never seen. Well, one of the realities and skills that we have to build is the ability to critically think through questions. So that's something that we want to focus on when we're in the program of, okay, it's one thing to be able to say, oh, I've done this firm offer question before, right? Or this traditional option contract where this is the sequence of facts and this is the outcome. Yeah, there's going to be the questions like that where you recognize a sequence, but there's also going to be the questions that you don't. And in reality, you have to have the skill of critical thinking. Can I lean on another area of law to help me logically work my way through this? Or can I have strong enough process of elimination to get through those questions? So we've already had the challenge with multiple choice questions. I don't think this changes anything. So it's really more or less the same approach.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you for that.
Okay. Miriam, that answer your question as well?
It did. I actually have another question now. If that's okay. I saw like when we register, I don't know if this is right, like we have the option to be remote versus in person.
Yes.
And is there a preference to how we should register?
So that would be, in theory, a personal preference. So one thing that, yes, we have to address, and this is something that, because all of this is fresh and new, I'm still taking the time to kind of sit with how I would recommend, because this is all new and we don't know the inner workings. But I'm expecting a few students to report back to me over the weekend who took the experiment exam that went through multiple choice, to get an idea of how the test center was, to get an idea of how the software was, all these things, because with more information, we'll be able to answer these questions. But what I can assure you is that I am invested in staying up to date on these things and getting as much information and then relaying that to my students to make sure we're making decisions on the fly and figuring out how to adjust to this new format. Yeah. And then Ali Parsa, yeah, if you took the experiment, you got an extra 40 points if you scored high enough. So like if you got a requisite score, that was the incentive for people to sign up for this experiment. Okay, so yeah, Miriam, that's the answer to that question, is like a lot of it is it's a little bit of a wait and see. But like I said, one thing I think you can rest easy with if you do go with us is that I'm not sure what that line of communication might be with a very big program, let's say like a Barbary or Themis, that tutors in multiple states and does things like that. Because I think with this changing so quickly and being so new, that direct line of communication, I think, is gonna be very important for this first time Kaplan exam. All right, Rajal, did I pronounce that correctly? Okay.
Sorry, just trying to work out how to unmute myself. But yeah, that was perfect. So I had a question about the changes, but you've obviously answered that. So my other question was in relation to the MBE specifically. what do you do on the program to get students to practice the MBE questions? Because I used Adaptabar the first time round, which I thought was pretty good, but I also spent a long time doing the Barbary multiple choice questions, which were just a complete waste of time. So I'm just wondering what it looks like on the course that you run.
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, there's two ways that we approach multiple choice within our program. Obviously, it starts off with the strategy that I think is very, very important that we start with. And then after the strategy, on Learn Days, I mentioned that one of the primary resources are going to be your legally fit hypos. So in making those legally fit hypos, what I did was I researched over 3,000 multiple choice questions. And again, what my goal, and you'll see this on Wednesday, everybody, when we go through multiple choice strategy, my goal is to train you all how to catch patterns. You don't want to do a multiple choice question just to see if you get the right answer. You want to see if you get the right answer, but more importantly, you want to walk away with what was the sequence of action? What was the sequence of legal events? And what was the legal conclusion? And when you can generalize a scenario and summarize it to that, you can then see it dressed differently with other facts that are different, but yet similar or the same from that general sequence that you saw. So all that to say, with the legally fit hypos, I studied 3,000 questions. I took out the sequences of, okay, somebody made an offer, then somebody wanted to get out of the offer and they did this. And then the other person said, you can't. And then now they asked me what to do, right? So I took that sequence and put it into more relatable questions. I found that when I personally went through Adaptabar, UWorld questions, a lot of times, not only are you testing legal principles, but it's just hard to follow the question to really connect with it. You know, it's like man one walks into woman two, right? And you can't really connect with it. So my goal was to take those sequences, create things that you can connect with. And then when you do the bar exam questions or even your practice questions, you can now feel like, oh, I've seen this before and I know what to do here. So that's number one. Then when you have to get into your actual formal practice, I then recommend that you use any selection of Adaptabar, UWorld. Those would be the top two choices. But then after that, you have like the Emmanuel book and some other resources out there that's like in tier 2. But the reality of it is, Rajal and everybody, is that when it comes to the MBE, we have never had adequate study materials. Right. And so just to give you all the history lesson as to how the multiple choice has worked, the UBE, which is an organization, right, that's over the NCBE, which is over the UBE exam for like the 27 states that subscribe to that, they create that test. California has always said, well, we don't want your entire exam. We just want your multiple choice. So we get our multiple choice from the NCBE. The NCBE does not release their multiple choice questions after every administration. Unlike the written portion. After the written portion, we get every essay, every PT, and 2 sample answers for each. The NCBE, over, let's say, 50 years or so, has only released the questions that they have thrown out, only released the question that they have phased out. And so we have essentially had to work with what we received, which is essentially their trash. Now, from that, Adaptabar, UWorld, other resources, et cetera, what they'll do is they'll all license those same, over the course of time, let's say 1,500 questions from the NCBE. NCBE has put that much out over 50 years. Companies will buy those. And then on top of that, they'll make their own 1,500 questions. And so, Rajal, that's where you'll then see some differences between, let's say, UWorld, Adaptabar, Barbary, et cetera, is that how did they come up with those custom 1,500, and that's just kind of dealer's choice at that point. And so that's the reality of it. So that's why no matter which one students take, you're going to walk into the bar exam and say, that didn't look exactly the same. And it's because it's not. They keep such a veil over the multiple choice. So that's why my biggest approach, no matter which source you use, it's about catching as many patterns and as many sequences as we can so that when we do see some of those, we're ready for them. But then also let's practice our skill of logical and critical thinking, because we are undoubtedly going to have to rely on that when we get that nuanced question or we get the question presented to us in a nuanced manner. So yeah,
Awesome. Thank you. Really helpful.
very, very welcome. Awesome. All right. Any other questions? And as we see if we have any other questions, I'm curious. I know, Lauren, you've been engaged with me. I've seen your camera on the entire time. Lauren, what is at this stage of today, what is one of the biggest takeaways for yourself personally that you're walking away with after this session?
I feel like it's very customizable. And you kind of laid out the options. It's like, it's not necessarily a box program where it's like one size fits all. You've kind of laid out, if you don't want to give up your job, you don't want to give up your social life, here's the give and take. So I think that's very helpful. I think Delilah's question at the beginning was most helpful for me personally, given the fact that I did go with a different company. So I was curious to see how it was going to differ. So I appreciate Delilah asking that question and your response.
Good. Awesome. Yes. And I will say that, yeah, we have worked tirelessly over the years because, yeah, that's the reality. Like, is that students, especially in this day and age, are just in such different circumstances where it's like, yes, how can we create something that gives them the most flexibility, creativity with their schedule? So glad to see that you have noticed that. Appreciate it. And yeah, out of curiosity, just to share, are you going to be in a full-time study mode, or are you going to be more in the partial and have to figure out how many hours we do have?
I was that slide where it said parent, full-time working, and learning disability. I checked all those blocks for you.
Yeah.
So I have flexibility at work, but I would like to maintain some kind of work presence.
Yes.
Appreciate you laying it all out there.
Good. Yes. And it's like, I always come with like, let's be real. I never want to discourage, but it's like at the same time, let's be real. So again, Lauren, everybody that's in that same position, the number one thing you can do is prepare yourself by coming up with a very close to accurate number on what am I going to be able to commit. So that way it's not just you're going into it, I'm going to study as much as I can. No, or it's over optimistic of I'm going to study 50 hours a week, and then it doesn't end up being that. And now our whole plan is off. So yes, really sit down and don't rush it. We have time. That can be a big part of your early start, is really setting that up and getting that down. Awesome.
There is a
All
question
right,
in the
everybody.
chat for you, DeAndre.
Oh, there's a question in the chat.
Yes,
DeAndre is someone that scored very close to a 1390. I feel like I forgot the vast majority of the law already. Do you think it's a question of relearning the law or refreshing your memory on the law? Yes, I think there's a natural tendency as soon as you finish taking the bar, put your pens down, your computer down, everything just like escapes the bar. You're like, I want nothing to do with this. You're on vacation now, right? But you will be surprised as to how much is still there, especially for somebody who scored, right? Let's say 25 points off when you were right there. Typically, that means you put in a good amount of work to get to that point. And you can imagine that is not all going to be gone. So what you want to do, and if you're a little nervous about that, that's an even better reason to do an early start, where you can do it in a very peaceful, non-aggressive manner, where you're just like, all right, let's like slowly get back into this and see the law, right? In a this is my 10-week program and we're in bar prep, but just, all right, it's November. It's this week. Let me just look over contracts, right? This whole week, I'm just going to sporadically go through my outline. I'm going to go through some multiple choice questions, maybe an essay question or two, just to appreciate it and get back in the flow. But all that to say, I can give you definitely some comfort in that the law will come back to you once you jump into it. Oh yeah, do you have a follow-up question?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I had my headphones in and they're not very good. So thank you for answering my question, my couple of questions. I have another one that was in the chat. I hear that there's a second experimental portion that's being offered. Do you have any information on that by any chance?
The specifics, I don't have all of it, but the only thing I think I have heard is that the second experiment, I don't believe that they're giving the extra points for that one. Monique, did you recall anything off the top?
That is correct. I believe it's supposed to
Okay.
be like in January, and they will not be giving points for that one. That one is a point-free test.
Got you. Yeah, and a follow-up to the the question you replied to. Yeah. So I was very close. I was very, very close, and it was really disconcerting. Um, so today I tried to go and do some civil procedure questions, and I just got everything wrong. And I
Yeah.
guess my mind isn't, it's just not in the right place yet, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And I
And,
I
and
I want to get an early start. I want to be very motivated, but I guess I just need a bit more time to reflect on everything.
absolutely. I'm gonna give you a quick analogy, right? What's your favorite sport?
Soccer.
Soccer. All right. Let's say you were playing soccer professionally for 10 years, and then you took, 2 years off, and your first time getting back out there, you jump into an actual game. Is that actual game going to probably go well?
No.
Right? Exactly. You're going to have to go back to practice, go through the drills, get back up to game speed, all those steps. Exactly. So that's all that happened, right? Like you kind of wanted to see if you still had it, right? And you jumped straight into some multiple choice questions and it was like, whoa. But all that means is, again, there's just the steps. And the steps, what that looks like is you would start with, let me get resituated with the law. Let me refresh myself on these rules. Let me get back into this. Okay, now let me do some multiple choice questions. And I think you'll see a much different result.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right, Stephanie, question?
Hi, DeAndre. I've actually come to a few of your classes prior to the July exam, and I loved them. So I'm back. I didn't pass this July, unfortunately.
I hope
But
that means you're going to
I
sign up for the program now. You've done all the pre stuff.
I know. It's just the thing is it's so expensive and I already have Barbary. So I'm like, I'll probably do the 99 one-on-one thing
Uh-huh.
and go from there and
I
see.
understood.
Yeah. But it's just really expensive. But however, I have a very similar situation as Lauren, except I don't have children. But I just wanted to know, like, I want to start early, obviously. And I just wanted to make sure that I'm not overdoing it because I can tend to be that type of studier. 10
Yeah,
hours to start right off, like from now
too much.
until, okay. So it would be behoove of me to just gradually start the 10 until I can take the time off because it would probably be either the last 2 months or the last month that I would take off from work.
So yeah, like if you're in that situation, then you might want to do an early start as a remedy approach, right? And so what you're going to want to do is whether it's Barbary or maybe it's Legally Fit, we find a way to make that happen. You want to start that program essentially early. Now you need to figure out based off of, again, as we talked about with Lauren, how many hours am I going to be able to do? So then that'll tell us essentially how many additional days or weeks you need to complete everything that's in the 10 weeks. So then let's say if you started tomorrow, I'm just throwing out some numbers here. Let's say if you started tomorrow, you have 16 weeks to study. Let's just actually get the number down right now while we're at it. Can anybody look at the calendar and tell me how many weeks do we have between now and December 16th? How many weeks do we have between now and December 16th?
5.
Okay.
4.
I was
Yep.
close.
5,
So
yeah.
let's say there's a total of 15 weeks, including this week, but let's just go with 15 weeks.
Mhm.
Now, Bar Prep is created to be a 10-week program. But let's say because of your time commitment with work or other commitments, let's say we've determined that based off of instead of being able to put in 60 hours a week or 70 hours a week, et cetera, that you're only able to put in 40. Let's just say we did the quick math, and that means it now takes you 12 weeks to do the 10. Okay. So then now we know that you need to start 12 weeks out. And then now you can play with a customizable early start for 3 weeks that you can do at any type of intensity or aggressiveness that you want.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah,
especially since I have a 40-hour week, so or more.
exactly. But that's why I am such a stickler. And it is just the number one starting point is like, how many hours am I going to study? right? Because I can, no matter what you give me, and it may be difficult, but I'll give you a personalized attack plan that I think will give us the best shot at you doing this. But it's all in vain when that completely goes right by the wayside, when that wasn't an accurate number. So.
Correct. And would you say, is it best to possibly take a mental break, maybe like 30 minutes after a work day, or would you say just jump right in, or it just depends on the person?
Yeah, and give yourself, with all the structure and discipline, when you have those crazy time, commitments like parenting and work, we know that every day is not the same, right? Like it's some days where them kids wear us out, I'm saying us like I don't have any kids, but I know what I can relate a little bit. I know what you guys be saying on social media all the time. It's like some days are harder than others. Right? Work, right? We know some days at work can be very draining, right? Coworkers annoying, boss annoying, or just a lot of work, whatever it may be. So all that to say, have structure, but have grace. There might be some days where you're feeling that energy right after work. You know what? Let's jump into it. There might be other days where it's just like, let's take 30 minutes. But we want to be careful of to not throw off our big picture is, oh, today was tough. Let me take the day off. Right? Let me take the week off. Well, then now all of a sudden we're just, oh, that's not the discipline. And now we're just throwing off our schedule, and that's just going to like create the like tumble of frustration. So yeah, those little grace windows I think are good. But if I were to go with a starting point, I think, yes, I think a little break in between. And if it were me personally, I would try to get in maybe like a 30-minute workout, because I think that workout could be like a physical reset between that shift, right? So if I was just with the kids or just working, like, all right, let me kind of do a little run, do some push-ups, and all right, I'm reset, and now let me jump into it. But that could be a walk for you. That could be a meditation. So those are some things to experiment with.
Thank you, DeAndre. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. All right, everybody. So yes, I see some people are still with this. Super awesome to see. I'm here to get all those questions answered. If anybody is ready to go to eat, go dinner, whatever, you're welcome to go. We'll be back again here on Wednesday to go over multiple choice and our strategy that we use. But yes, any other questions while you have me? You're welcome. You're welcome.
Really quickly, sorry, I know everybody's leaving. Can we talk about pricing? As someone mentioned, it is a bit expensive. So I'm curious as to if there are like payment plans or any type of Black Friday deals coming up or just anything.
Yeah, absolutely. So at this moment, we don't have any Black Friday deals coming up. I appreciate the request. And yeah, we are always looking for any Black Friday deals. As far as the payment plans go, that is something that is of an option. Monique, do you want to give the overview of what options are available for payment plans right now?
Sure. There's a full payment, a 2-payment plan, and a 3-payment plan. The 3-payment plan will be expiring around the 15th or the 16th. So if that is something that you want to do, I suggest doing it between now and the 15th. It's all in alignment with when Bar Prep starts to have you finish your payments by the time it's like the first or second week of Bar Prep. So you have a
Yeah.
2-payment and a 3-payment.
And then just to add on to that, again, what I will just share with you all is that we definitely have tried to be right, as affordable as we can with Legally Fit to, again, keep the lights on, keep, the essay grading contractors that we have to work with, all the things that we have to do to run this program. And if you compare our prices to other private tutors, right, you see prices up into the figures of 8,000, 6,000, et cetera. So yes, we try to find a price that is very a middle ground for what the value that you'll be receiving. I can promise you'll receive more value than I think what it costs. But then also give something that can be done for those that can't do it. But the last good thing that I'll share is that, again, with our commitment to you, the reality is that you're buying into a program that has your back. So I think the thought process is, if it's the 2,000 option you're looking for or the $4,000 option, it's that this is an investment, in myself. This is an investment in my career. This is an investment in a program that not only is going to because for example, with Stephanie's thought process, like she may or may not like Barbary, but it's like, okay, I have it and it's free to continue, but you know, and again, let me not use Stephanie, not speak for anybody, but let's just go with the people who are in the position where they'll just reuse the program that they don't like because it's free. And it may then be or not be successful for them. So I highly recommend that you look at it from a perspective of this is going to be something that is a company that's going to be invested in me, is going to offer me a lot for what I'm paying, and they're going to stick with me until I pass this. So if that helps at all in being able to justify the price, and then yes, we have the payment plans.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Awesome. Okay, everybody. I see we are dwindling down. It looks like that is it. Any last is the last opportunity? Any other remaining questions before we hop out? Okay, so hopefully I will see you all on Wednesday. Super excited to go over multiple choice with you all. This was a great session. Looking forward to all of you all being in the program. And if not, still wishing for your success on this upcoming exam. Again, it starts with a good attack plan, and hopefully everything we discussed today is going to help you take those next steps to doing such. So have a good rest of your evening, and I will see you all hopefully on Wednesday. All right, take care.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.